Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. This is Liam Burnell. I'm walk across North America, and today I've made it to central New Jersey, where I have the great pleasure of walking down this safe and quiet bicycle path instead of the side of the road. But this path follows along the Delaware and Raritan Canal, which is a very historic place, so I wanted to take a minute to fill you in on the history here if you don't already know it. This bicycle path is actually the tow path that mules used to use to tow barges down the canal here. The canal was built in the 1830s to haul coal from the anthracite coal beds of northeastern Pennsylvania down to the markets in New York City, where it was used as heating fuel for homes. And the canal, it was built and dug with the furious labor of thousands of immigrants, almost all of whom came from Ireland. And the way that worked, their family land back in Ireland, where they used to grow food and subsist happily, was taken over and colonized by the British aristocracy and used to grow luxury crops to send over to England. So people stopped being able to feed themselves in Ireland. As you probably know, millions of them starved and millions more migrated here to America. And what they did to get this canal built was promise those the men in the group a good wage and a better life if they migrated here and helped build this. They got them onto boats that way, brought them over here, and then actually just paid them pennies a day and subjected them to 7 days a week of work from sunrise till sunset, just digging and digging and digging the canal. They paid them inadequately, they fed them inadequately. They housed them in squalid bunkhouses where they were so close together. There was so little sanitation that in the hot months of the summer, which they were also expected to work through, disease tore through the camps and killed thousands of them. It's estimated that somewhere between 3,000 and 7,000 workers died in the process of building the canal. And I just want to linger there and talk about the implications of that number, 3,000 to 7,000. That's a really vague number. And what that tells us is that nobody knows for sure. And that tells us that nobody kept track of who these men were, didn't write down their names, or, they just brought them over here, killed them on the job, and left them to rot. I remember reading that if their coworkers and friends wanted to bury them, they would have to stay up and dig more by torchlight, because they weren't allowed any time off to bury their dead coworkers. It's doubtful that family members back home were notified. They were just left to wonder why they weren't hearing from their sons and husbands who migrated to America anymore. That was the 1830s. And, Americans and first world citizens in Europe and Japan and wherever we live like to pat ourselves on the back and say, oh, this is good. We don't do things this way anymore. That was the past. And we don't really do things this way here in the United States anymore very much. But I regret to have to tell you that the global economy is still set up so that a lot of people still toil for pennies a day till their death and are bunked in squalid conditions that they can't survive. And the way that works is basically the same way. Their land, since the 1960s, the CIA has used billions of dollars or millions of dollars of U.S. tax money to overthrow democratically elected governments in most of the third world nations and replace them with puppet dictators who are under orders to confiscate peasants' land, just like the Irishmen were in the 1800s. They use that land now to grow food that comes to our grocery stores, to grow beef for American carnivores, to grow soybeans for American vegans and vegetarians, to grow palm oil to lubricate machines. They confiscate the land to extract oil, minerals, and that land can no longer be used by those third world people to grow food for their own subsistence anymore. So starving, they flock to the cities looking to make money somehow to buy food when they used to not need money. And they get, the only jobs available to them are generally toiling away to build giant infrastructure projects, much like this canal only more modern. In many cases, those infrastructure projects are there to bring resources to the upper classes in their own countries, and so we can say, oh, that's not our fault or our problem. But in many other cases, those infrastructure projects are actually designed and built specifically to extract resources from those countries and bring them here and bring them to Europe and Japan. And so that is our fault, and it is our problem, and we shouldn't remain ignorant of it. If we want to do something about that, the best thing we can do is make sure we buy American-made products, or better yet, make them ourselves, grow our food in our yard, sew our own clothing, that type of stuff. Become less dependent on the globalized economy that's still enslaving people and working them to death, just like the Irishmen were here 100 and some years ago. So in conclusion, I want to sing a little ditty by the Pogues in honor of the men who built this canal. To shift a few tons of this earthly delight. Thank you for listening. Buy my book, Take Courage, America. Keep me on the road, informing the world about stuff like this. Thank you.